Greetings, cartoon connoisseurs, and welcome to the Animation Conversation, where we explore the art form from pencils to pixels. And now, here are your hosts, Rusty Shackleford and F.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Animation Conversation. I'm Rusty, and we're here with our co-host.
Hey, what's up, party people? It's your old pal, F.
There we go. So, F, today we have somebody who has worked on different comics, but is also a part of your intern program. So I think this is our first intern, somebody from your studio's intern program. So here we go. This is awesome. Everybody, welcome Sophie to the podcast.
Hello.
Hey,
Thanks
Sophie.
for having me on.
Thank you for coming. Now, do you want to give out your Twitter info in case people want to, look you up and see what you get the quick version of what you're about?
Sure. My name is Sophie Scruggs. That's SOPHIEASCRUGGS. If you want to look me up on Twitter, Sophie A. Scruggs.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, my Instagram's the same handle. So
it's what's interesting is if you go to Sophie's page right out of the gate is you're gonna see lots of beautiful like Neopets illustrations, and I think I might have spotted some pony stuff there.
Honestly, F, it was the Neopets that stood out to me because as a young internet adopter in the early 2000s, Neopets, like if it was like Pokemon for the kids who had internet. If you weren't playing Neopets, you weren't cool. You know what I mean? Everybody was on it when I was growing up. So
now see, that's crazy to me because I remember when it started. Like one of my very first students at Cal Arts, she graduated Cal Arts. Her name is Heather Chavez, and she's a big deal now. She does tons of like illustration and design stuff for Disney. But one of her first like professional jobs was at this place called Neopets, and I remember thinking, what is this? And she described it to me very roughly the same way you did, and I was just like, oh, that'll never last. And now here we are, like 20 years later, and it's still going. So, Sophie, you can tell us a little bit about what you do there. How did you get started there?
Sure. So I started playing Neopets when I was like 10 years old in 2003. It was, the real hot thing at the time. And never did I guess that, all these years later, I would end up working for them. A couple years ago, they approached me and they needed help for their merchandise design for their Christmas line coming up. And I was just like, yes, say less, please. I would love to do it. And so I did that. And then earlier this year, this is no longer a secret now. They're relaunching their trading card game this year at San Diego Comic-Con. And which I thought was huge.
Oh.
And I got to design 12 of the trading cards for them, and I'm really excited to see them in trading card form. But it's been a huge such a wonderful experience. I wish I could go back and tell little kid Sophie, like, hey, you're gonna be working on this one day, I got hugely into it because I wasn't allowed to play Pokemon or read Harry Potter and stuff like that. My parents were, really strict with stuff like that. For some reason, Neopets flew under the radar. So,
It's funny too, because no matter how much you might work on a franchise that's a big deal, when you get to do something that you can actually hold in your hands, there's that's sort of a whole new level thing.
Yeah.
Like I remember when they started making Wild Thornberrys merchandise, they took a bunch of the just sketches that I did when I first got hired on the show. That was just doing practice sketches, and they wound up using them in the character guides, and then the character guides became the clip art booklet. And so years later, when the toys came out, I would look on the box and I saw my drawings And that was a bigger thrill for me than seeing my name in the credits at the end of Paul Dorothy, because I could hold it in my hands.
Yeah,
You
tangible. It's
never
always
get
better when it's
tired.
tangible.
Yeah, I'm never going to get tired of being able to hold my art physically. So
Yeah.
I get that totally.
Well, and not just hold it, but know that there are people out there
Yeah.
walking around with it, and especially
Mhm.
kids, and just knowing that it's making them happy and stuff like that. Now, you
Yeah.
talked about if you were to go back in time and talk to a younger you, at what age did you start sort of drawing and saying to yourself, "This is what I want to do"?
Um, I know a lot of people have it a little bit older, but I was drawing from like a super young age mostly, and I think this is a little bit because I have cerebral palsy. I'm paralyzed on my left side,
Hmm.
so it took me longer to walk. I didn't really play with other kids. I would just go home and draw or stay at my grandparents and draw. One of my earliest memories is like watching Lion King on VHS, over and over and over to the point that my grandparents were just sick of it, but they were good sports and just trying to like draw what I saw on the television. And I would, go out in recess at school and take little booklets that would come with like computer games, and they would be tutorial booklets, but they would have a lot of the character art in the tutorial booklets, and I would try to recreate the drawings that I was seeing. So um, I don't think I knew specifically what jobs there were for art yet, but I remember telling people, I want to draw when I grow up. I want to do like the movies that I was seeing, basically. So,
Right. Now, um, like, how old would you say you were when all this was going on? I know you mentioned it earlier, but when you first saw Neopets.
oh, when I was Neopets, I was like 9 or 10. So, yeah. But I remember like taking those booklets as early as like second grade. So that would have been 7, maybe.
Now, I'm kind of interested to hear too, because boy, people love it when I nitpick and draw irritatingly detailed distinctions. But there is a difference between drawing and illustrating.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I feel like, drawing can be sort of anything from a little doodle, you know, I feel like that's almost, it can be anything that you want. Illustrating, I feel like you have to kind of come in with a concept, um, decide what story that you're telling with the piece that you're making. Um, I do cover art now, and I always try to think about the story of the comic that I'm going to be trying to illustrate in one image that people will see and on the stands and be like, is this interesting for me to pick up? And so I try to think about the overall flow of the image and what story it tells, what type of art styles am I going to be mimicking? I love looking at like old posters, like old band posters and concert posters, and kind of use that as inspiration as well. So
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting when you think about it, especially as it pertains to comics. The cover art uh, is not merely just art that you put on the cover. It's a
right.
thing that is meant to make a literally a passerby, look at it and go, "Ooh, I want to know more."
Mm-hmm.
Who
Oh,
now
absolutely.
when you do stuff like that, like, I mean, do you come up with the composition? Do they give you, here are your parameters, here's what you have to work in, here's what we want this to convey, or do they let you sort of riff it first and then give you notes, or how does all that work? Because I'm a like a serviceable illustrator at best. I am not a good illustrator, so help me
So
out here.
usually what happens is my editor will send me an overview of what the issue is supposed to be about. They may or may not have the script already. Sometimes I'll get the script as well. And from there, I'll send 1 or 2 thumbnails, just very rough sketches of what it'll look like. And they'll say, move forward with this one. we like this, but Hasbro doesn't want you to add this part, so change that. And sometimes it will be the most random things that you have no idea why, but you're like, okay.
Right.
Um, so I kind of have a little bit of free reign in the way that I make the cover look most of the time. Um, this most recent one that came out, which was a My Little Pony special called Bridal Woodstock, which is a music festival. I wanted it to look like a vintage concert poster,
Oh,
but it was a tie-in to a Netflix movie special. So they were having, yeah. So
oh.
I yeah, they gave me like the whole book or whatever that they had for the animators as well, so I could see what the characters looked like. And it was about a month back and forth of what characters could go on the cover, what couldn't go on the cover, things like that. So sometimes you get like kind of, anything goes. Other times, this character has to be here. Don't put this character in because it's a spoiler, that kind of a thing. So,
Now I know that on the rare occasions that I've had to do similar stuff like that, as you said, they'll be like, don't let this character be doing this. Like, do they give you literally like a book of like, here are all the rules?
no, I know Neopets has one, and I have seen the inside of it. Some because I've accidentally broken the rules that they didn't know, they didn't tell me about until I saw the book. With My Little Pony, they don't. I mostly work one on one with the IDW editor, but sometimes I will draw something and she'll be like, "I've got to ask Hasbro if that's okay."
Mm.
Um, One thing in particular I remember is there was a baking competition issue, and I had all of the ponies from Generation 5, which is the current generation, making and icing cookies that were made to look like the characters in G4.
Oh
So,
boy.
yeah, and I just thought it would be a fun nod for like the older fans, you know. And they were like, "We like this idea, but I don't know if Hasbro will like G4 being acknowledged in G5." And I was like, "Okay, just let me know." And
Mm.
because I'm doing it all on Photoshop, I went ahead and finished everything but the cookies, and then I was like, "Well, I'm gonna go and finish the cookies for myself. If they don't like it, I'll switch out what they're making."
Right.
Because they took like a month to get back to me, and thankfully they said yes. So,
Oh, that's
Oh, that's
awesome.
yeah,
great. Yeah, that's great.
I just think that's the kind of story that My Little Pony fans are going to appreciate. You know, that the person
yeah,
creating this stuff has a love for the lore and the history.
yeah. I definitely do. I started drawing and actually like hand sewing My Little Pony toys when I was a senior in high school
Wow.
because I was very burnt out. I was one of those kids that had like a 4 point whatever GPA, and I hit 12th grade, and I was like, wow, I do not care about this anymore. I need something else to do. And so I took a sewing class, and I realized I really liked sewing actually. And at the time there was like no good My Little Pony merch on the market, and that was kind of how I got my start as like a My Little Pony artist. Was I would go on DeviantArt and sell these handmade plush toys that people would buy from me, and then it sort of somehow over the past 11 years has kind of gone away from plush making into doing official cover art, which is crazy to me.
Now, do you have a formal art training or?
So I took AP art classes when I was in high school. I originally was going to go to an art college that shall not be named. They basically told me that I had a full ride, and they waited until it was like way too late to apply to any other college and told me then that they no longer did stacking scholarships, which
No.
is what
Mm.
I was personally using to go to this school. I actually was qualified to graduate early from high school. I stayed an extra the full year of 12th grade to get all these stacked scholarships, and then they told me February of my senior year that they no longer stacked scholarships, that I could take the biggest one, and that was it. So I didn't know what to do. Obviously, I wasn't going to go to
Oh,
this school and get super in debt because that was not my intention to begin with. I didn't have that money. So I went
Yeah.
to I skipped a semester after high school because I didn't know what to do. And my dad, just by sheer chance, had a job interview at Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he didn't get the job, but I found out that they had a really great gaming program. It was actually the first like accredited game design program in the country. Apparently, like Bill Gates had furnished the computers and stuff like that there. And I was like, well, I'm not interested in gaming, but a lot of the same programs and a lot of the same, concepts are in a game degree as what I want to learn.
Hmm.
So I went there and, I learned all the stuff about Photoshop and still like character design, how to tell a good story. I mean, it's all very, very parallel, very lateral to what animation is. So I still felt like I learned a lot, even if it wasn't, you know, what you would consider a traditional uh education for this.
Wow. Pulling that and making you stay in 12th grade when you didn't actually have to, that's I think
Yeah,
that qualifies as a hate crime. You should.
Yeah.
it
There
felt
should have
like
been
a hate.
somebody. There should have been somebody you could have sued for that or something. That's insane. That is like of extreme disjustice for sure.
I
I
actually found out that this school has done that to several people, and I don't have the stuff on it now, so I don't know if I could be part of it, but I saw a couple years ago people that have gone to that school talking about a class action lawsuit because of this very situation.
Oh
So I'm
wow.
not alone.
when you talk about, ways that you could torture a person, having them stay in high school longer than necessary,
Yeah,
that would go above waterboarding. That
I did.
would go above having your fingernails pulled out. That are you kidding me?
I
Oh,
know. I did so much for for those scholarships. I was like president of the National Art Honor Society. I
oh.
entered all these contests. I had art that was in the Met for a little bit, but and like all of this was supposed to be specific scholarships, and none of it led to anything.
Now, see, actually, I can relate because except it's not as bad because it was college. But when I was
Uh-huh.
attending, when I got into my university, Western Michigan University, and I don't mind saying their name,
Uh-huh.
because I still resent them for this. When I went in, my grades were so good that they were like, okay, you're going for an art major. You have to pick a minor, and apart from the classes that are required for those two things, you have tested out of everything else. You are not required to
Uh-huh.
take anything except for the things that lead to your degree. And I
Right.
was like, well, this is awesome. So I took on an art major with an English minor with a focus on journalism, and so I took all this stuff and did great in everything. And after about 4 years and earning a whole bunch of points in everything towards my towards my bachelor's,
Mm-hmm.
I went to go see my counselor for the first time, in 4 years probably. And the counselor was like, well, you haven't taken any math or science or social studies or anything like that. I'm like, I tested out of all that stuff. And he's like, oh, we changed that last year.
How
And
are
I'm
you supposed to know that?
so it didn't occur to you guys that maybe I might want to hear about this information. And so I wound up, college for me wound up being a like 7 year deal because I had to like I said, and at this point it was fine because I was enjoying myself so much doing comics for the college newspaper, and
Right.
I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna take these classes, but then I'm also gonna take a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with nothing. Like I'm going to take acting, and I'm going to take fencing, and I'm going to take, I'm just going to take all this
Okay.
kooky stuff. And so I just decided if I'm going to be here longer anyway, I'm going to learn a little bit about everything. So,
You're going to be extremely well-rounded.
yep. And consequently, now what was surprising about that is, and I encourage, anyone who wants to get into animation, or really any kind of storytelling, to do stuff like this and to do stuff that is outside of your wheelhouse, like
Mm-hmm.
acting and improv and public speaking and even television production, all these
Yeah.
things. Taking journalism was the best thing I ever did in terms of becoming a good storyteller, because it teaches you to be an incredibly concise storyteller.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's abandon how resentful we are towards school.
Yeah.
I don't, is it just Sophie and me, or I mean, Rusty? Did your school ever do anything like this to you?
Actually, no. I actually did something to my school. I dug up dinosaur bones where I wasn't supposed to in community college, and almost ended up with a first degree felony theft. Uh,
Whoa!
but no, actually, the college I went to was actually pretty outstanding. It's one of the best community colleges in the United States. It's like a top like 10, 15 community college.
Now, see what's funny about Sophie's story, and I feel like I am hearing more and more stories like this, which I think is encouraging and wonderful. Is that you've got all these people scrambling to get into places like Sheridan and CalArts and
Yeah.
RISD and all these top-notch schools. Which, by the way, hooray for those schools! I taught at
Mm-hmm.
CalArts, Laguna College of Art and Design. By the way, if you're in California, that's a great school. Um, San Jose State University is a school that I taught at for a while. They have a great animation program. I got nothing against the big guys.
Right.
That being said, I didn't go to any of those schools. I went to my just regular little small town university, and you went to a community college, and you just
Right.
what more often than not, what gets your foot in the door is your own work and your own beat in the
Yeah.
pavement.
100%. I tell kids this. I've started doing a panel at these My Little Pony conventions that I'm at. I'm at like practically one every month at this point.
Wow.
And I know most people don't realize there's that many, but there
Oh,
are.
I
No
know. No,
clue.
yeah.
And
Uh, Sorry, go
I've
ahead.
started trying to do like sort of an educational panel, because there's so many young kids that come up to me and they're like, how did you start doing this? I want to sell my art. How do I do it? And so I do sort of a joint panel of teaching younger kids like what it takes to be an artist alley and sell your art, which can start from literally like drawing your own things. Like you don't have to have a lot of money to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And and then I also talk about sort of what led me to doing my art professionally. And I actually go through and show them my portfolio and kind of what I wish I had known before and stuff like that. But what was the question again? I totally lost it.
Me too.
Uh
But because now I'm interested to know, because I know the My Little Pony universe out there, and the My Little Pony community of fans is a very, as I think I said earlier, an emphatic group of. Are you famous in that community? Like, are you?
uh
Because they're so huge, you could probably get elected to office if you really wanted to.
oh god. Oh god. I guess it depends on who you ask. Famous, infamous, I don't know. I hear things about myself that I didn't know about myself from third parties at this point. I'm just like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know that." But yeah, I guess it's gotten to the point where I hear random things about myself that are not true or true from people. So, uh I have enough of a following that it scares me a little bit sometimes. Like I don't understand. Um I have a lot of respect for people that are like showrunners or people that have like 100,000 followers online and manage to like not lose it, because I can barely deal with the amount that I that I have. And I mean that in no mean way, because like I'm really thankful for the support that I've gotten, but I also have I'm an introverted person, so like dealing with huge amounts of people uh is intimidating.
Oh, I know. It's I'm a textbook introvert as well, which people are always surprised to hear me say, because of course, you can tell just by listening to me, I love to talk. But see,
Right.
this kind of thing is perfectly comfortable to me. I could do this all day long and be fine. But if you
Right.
put me in an elevator with two other people,
Oh
I
yeah,
need
that's
I need
hell.
a, I need a nap afterwards because I'm so
Hmm.
stressed.
Yeah.
I was having to explain this to Rusty earlier that I'm a little crazy. Um, Getting back to My Little Pony, though, I can't help but be
Oh,
fascinated by this because, I mean, for one thing, one of my very good friends that I still have from, you know, the olden days in the animation industry is none other than Rob Renzetti, and I,
yeah.
um, my it was my daughter has actually sort of traversed the My Little Pony sort of phase of her life. She still likes him a lot, and she's still got like
Right.
the toys and stuff like that, but you know, it used to be every morning it would be like, let's watch the My Little Pony, and
Oh,
now she's playing Minecraft and stuff.
yeah.
But uh but yeah, I mean, I like to think that even though I never worked on the show, I like to think that I'm a friend of the show just because
Yeah.
I'm buddies with Rob. Um, you know, tell me more about that community and how they are towards you, and like you have, correct me if I'm wrong, you do a lot of cover art for the comics and stuff like that.
I do.
Have you met people who have worked on the animated shows? Have you interacted with any of
Right.
the facets, because it's a
I
whole
actually have
universe?
a I actually have a book over there that I have accrued autographs from like basically everyone that's
Nice.
worked on the show over the last 10 years. It just became a thing of, I would go to these conventions and it sort of became a, oh, you came by my table or I got to go off and get your autograph. Let's add you to the book, sort of a thing. So I've got this book that has just everybody in it at this point. Which is, it's sort of a scrapbook for me too, because I see that and I'm like, oh wow, this is my art from, 5, 6, 7 years ago that I got signed. And it's hard to look at now, but it's also a fun memory, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
The My Little Pony community, I mean, just like any other community, there's I feel like the fringe people are what get the most attention.
Hmm.
Um I feel like they kind of get a little bit of a bad rap because when I see them in person, a lot of them are very sweet, kind people. A lot of them are very obviously like on the autism spectrum, and I think sometimes the way they come across online or the way people will see them as childish online, they automatically just assume they're like man children in basements or whatever, when in reality, like they have, these super high paying tech jobs, and this is just the thing that brings them peace or happiness or community, you know. So it's got a little bit of everything in there. Sometimes about one person every convention will leave me with a crazy story that I'll come home and be like, hey, listen to this crazy thing that happened. But I mean, that's like one person out of, hundreds that I've met in the
Right.
weekend.
It's kind of funny. I mean, I stayed away, and you know what? That's kind of what I suspected would probably be the case, because
Right.
I stayed away from Twitter and Discord and all of, you know, social media in general for a long time because of that sort of that misconception that, oh, this is what the fans are going to be like. And it wasn't
Right.
until I got on the My Life as a Teenage Robot Discord server. Hi guys. That I was like, oh my gosh, what, you know, these people are so nice and they're so respectful. And that was the thing that really surprised me, was not just nice, but just very, very respectful and very like,
Yeah.
and that's what led me to get on Twitter, and that's what led me to, you know, do this, that, and the other. So, you know, it's I think you're right in that. I think that, you know, you hear about a lot of people in fandoms, which is not even a term I particularly care for, but
Mhm.
because it just it separates people and blah blah blah. Like
Right.
I love Star Wars practically more than anybody I know, but I'm not part of some little group
Yeah.
where, you know, like I'm not partisan. You know,
Yeah.
I'll watch Star Trek too, and it's just fine. But the point is, I think these fan bases and these groups of fans are actually, you know, most of them, and plus since then I've come to know a lot of Invader Zim fans and Fairly Odd Parents fans, and 99.9% of my Twitter, Instagram, and Discord interactions with fandoms is wonderful.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. So,
Now, do you go to when you go to conventions in addition to panels? Do you do autographs? Do you like?
I don't like do autographs in that I have a specific, time slot or anything, but sometimes people will bring covers that they want signed and things like that, which I never get tired of that. It's like, wow, I can't
Yeah.
believe, like, are you sure you want me to mess up the front of, of this comic? But it means a whole lot. Most recently, the one I was talking about, Bridal Woodstock, because it was a music festival, I did a couple things that my dad would really like. My whole dad's side of the family is huge into bluegrass. I don't know if you know who Earl Scruggs is,
Oh yeah.
but that was my grandfather's cousin,
Oh wow.
and I purposefully, like, in the borders of the comic, I drew the Gibson Earl Scruggs like model banjo, and then on the other side I did the Lester Flat guitar. And it's one of those things, it's like, if you know, you know, but most people will just think, oh, it's a music festival cover, that's why she picked that. But my dad was just like over the moon with that, and he was like, "Oh my god, okay, you gotta save me 15 covers because I've got to give everybody, one now." And I've got, these older people in my family going to a comic book shop for the first time, and who knows how long, looking for this cover because they just want it because of the Earl Scruggs tie-in.
Funny. Now that actually begs the question when it came to your proclivities towards drawing and towards doing this as a career and stuff. What were your parents encouraging? Were they like what was the situation there?
They were always encouraging of my art, thankfully. I know a lot of people don't have that experience, but they've always been very encouraging of that. My dad, was a professional banjo player for years, so like it's not the same thing, but it's similar, and he definitely has respect for it. Um, and
Well,
I don't
I
know.
tell your dad I love me some banjo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I love banjo too. I actually Steve Martin was born in the town that I'm sitting in right now. So
oh, that's cool.
yeah, Waco.
I
So
didn't
that's
know
where
that.
Steve Martin was born. Yeah, he was actually born here. He didn't live here for any length of time. His dad moved out west pretty quickly, but yeah, he's originally from Waco.
After this thing you should look up on YouTube, Steve Martin and Earl Scruggs do Foggy Mountain Breakdown. It's like a
Oh, I'll check
live
it out.
recording. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that
That's one
out.
of the things, I thought it was so like such a dad thing when I was a
Yeah.
kid. Like, I went to bluegrass concerts constantly as a kid. I probably met a bunch of people that would be really cool to say now, but like I don't even remember their names because I was just like, oh, one of dad's friends, whatever. And now I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, if you ever need like really good bluegrass banjo playing for for a production, my dad's your guy.
I think for me, my gateway drug into loving the banjo was Kermit the Frog and that Rainbow Connection by
Yeah,
Ballard. I mean, my
Yeah.
goodness, that
who
was
doesn't love Kermit?
well, and and yeah, that you want to talk about one of the most sort of beautifully poignant openings to any movie like ever, and that little banjo just plunking away, and um, I've and yeah, Steve Martin. Well, there was also a lot of John Denver in my house,
Hmm.
which has some banjo in it. But this I know it seems like we're kind of off topic here, but like it's funny when you talk about bluegrass and you talk about banjo and Steve Martin. This is sort of what I was getting at earlier when I was talking about taking a bunch of different stuff in college. When
Yeah,
you aspire to be a professional artist, and I'm hoping you'll back me up on this, it's important to at least experience or appreciate lots and lots and lots of different
yeah,
things. You can't just focus on one thing. And you hear this. We just had an animation professor on the show who said the same thing. When you focus on just one thing, like there are lots of people out there who are crazy talented at drawing the My Little Pony characters,
But you
But
need to be able to have other talents and other just world knowledge.
right. If you can't
Yeah.
even draw a table,
Yeah,
or
that's a problem.
you don't know what it's like to dive off a diving board, or really just anything. I mean,
Right.
you're crippling yourself from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah, for
um
sure.
one of the things I'm really proud of that I did in my life that went counter to absolutely every aspect of my personality was I went skydiving.
Oh, wow.
Boy, you go
Oh wow.
skydiving, and then you get asked to draw your superhero character flying through the air, and you've got a much better
You
perspective
know
on
what
it.
it looks like.
um
Wow.
yeah, and again, say like people will show My Little Pony drawings, and I'll be like, well, those are some great My Little Ponies, but then you ask them to draw a chair, and by golly, they're
Yeah,
crippled.
it's
Which,
like,
by the way, again, if
okay,
you're
draw a background.
yeah,
Yeah.
if your whole thing is that you just want to do fan art and that's all you want to do, you don't want to, or even
Right.
you just want to sell fan art, and that's your whole thing, that's totally fine. I get that. More power to you. Godspeed. If
But
I
if you
didn't,
wanted it to be a professional job, you need to be able to draw the things that you don't like to draw. Sometimes you need to, do the boring thing and learn
yeah,
perspective, be able to draw a building, be able to draw a background because, you can't have a professional job just drawing like the head up of a My Little Pony character.
right,
Maybe super well shaded. It may look exactly like the character, but, that's not a cover, that's not
right.
what it will look like on the TV show.
Well, and I think a lot of people who want to transition from, and you'll see where this is going, who want to transition from doing this kind of fan style art into animation specifically, say to themselves, well, I'm good at drawing characters, therefore I can be a character designer.
Right,
And they get a rude awakening too. Even when you are only asked to draw characters, character design is about 1% designing a character and 99% doing things like turnarounds and
right.
geometric breakdowns, models and expressions and all this
Mhm.
stuff, and it gets tedious really fast.
Yeah,
Now, have you done
but
anything
it's
like
very
that?
important. I've made my own personal character designs. My friend Alex Polinsky, who's a voice actor for Nickelodeon, a few years ago we did a pitch together for Nick, and basically it was his idea, his writing, but I did all the artwork and storyboarding for it. It didn't go anywhere, as most pitches don't, but I learned a lot from it, and that also included, making good character designs. I
Yeah,
feel like I learned a lot just from having to learn sort of how to streamline a design. If you're going to be having to draw it a million times or animate it a million times, you have to think about, what should it look like in a way that's not going to kill your animators every
right.
time they draw it.
Well, and that's a whole other aspect of it too. Yeah, you don't get to just draw, oh boy, here's this character. I get to draw it and it gets to be any way I want. You have to be able to draw it. It has to be able to, turn around. It has to be capable of expressions. And the
Yeah.
second the second you get into, is this CGI? Is this hand drawn? You're faced with a whole. And by the way, that's if you're lucky enough for your first job to be a character designer job, because a lot of people have to start out doing things like props,
Yeah.
where you will spend 8 hours a day drawing things like a spoon or a pepper grinder or a napkin dispenser. People don't think about these things when they go, I want to get into animation.
Right, but I mean, it's I when I explain it to my mom, for example, because she was like, "What are you doing?" When I told her, I was working on my portfolio, I'm like, "Well, I'm making props." And she's like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "Well, you've been in a play before, mom. A prop manager is somebody that has to kind of like, make the props or make sure the props are in the right scenes and stuff like that. Think of that, but for a cartoon, anytime someone, interacts with an item, if they pick up a book, what does the book look like? What do the pages look like when they open it up? People have to design that. So she was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, that makes sense. It's important."
Which now brings me to the question, you've spent, it sounds like, the majority of your career doing illustration and doing cover art and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And then somewhere along the line, you got the crazy idea to sign up for my little program. That's not,
Yeah.
well, the other MLP, my little program. The No, but the as we're calling it, the Fountains Pen Productions mentorship program. You were one of the first. I mean, I know you were in the first 100. You might have been even in the first 20 people to.
I remember sending you a message like as soon as I saw
Yeah,
the post. So
yeah. And now what's interesting about this, and why one of the reasons I'm excited to talk to you about this, is because you were talking about games earlier. I've tried to get into doing game stuff before as well. There's
hmm.
in cross media platforms, whether it's comics, games, or animation, and whether that animation is CGI or hand drawn, there's a lot of discrimination that comes in the form of, well, this person did comic book covers, they can't possibly do character design. And in my mind, that's
Hmm.
why I've been like, well, wait a minute, why?
Yeah.
Yes, they are two separate art forms, but I don't think that there's that much of a disconnect, that if somebody's got, something to offer,
Right.
you're leaving money on the table, as the saying goes, as far as I'm concerned. And
At
when
least give them a chance, right?
well, right, why not? I mean, and that's the thing, this person, and when I first saw your profile and saw your work online, I'm like, okay, this person knows how to work professionally, at least,
Yeah,
knows
thank
what a
you.
deadline is,
Yeah.
knows how to take notes, and knows how to, clearly has gone that far. So, that, why not? So what prompted you, have you been wanting to get into animation, or is this a newer thing, or what was your impetus?
So I definitely wanted to have been wanting to get into animation for a while. I moved like late 2019, early 2020 to LA, and you can see the timeline of that was interesting. Um, I ended up staying in my best friend's like guest room for what was supposed to be a couple months, ended up being almost a year because of COVID. And it just yeah, and just because of all the studios being shut down, it seemed really hard to like break in like
Oh,
remotely for people. I definitely applied to places, but I usually didn't even really hear back, and so I was like, I'm not sure if I'm doing it wrong. I'm not sure if they're even looking at people that they have not worked with yet, which honestly completely understandable because when everything is remote, you don't have time to like, you know, take chances on a green person, like I understand that, but it kind of sucked. Um, so I sort of pivoted to things that I did know, which was I don't know if you've seen, I've done enamel pins. I got really into selling enamel pins and I've hit like my 300th design recently,
wow.
which I
Oh,
know.
wow, that's a lot. Wow.
Yeah. And
Yeah, all your links to this stuff, if you message them to me, I'll add it all in the description. That way, everybody can find it real concisely and easily.
okay, cool. Thank you. But yeah, so I started selling pins. I have like a pin Patreon club that people are still in every month. And about last year I started really trying to get back into covers. I had done one cover back in 2019, but because of like a family medical emergency, I just wasn't able to continue doing that consistently. So I reached back out to IDW and I was like, hey, do you guys still need a My Little Pony cover artist? I would be happy to do it. And I had actually drawn a couple samples to them, and they almost immediately got back to me. I think within 30 minutes, they were like, "Yeah, we do actually. Let me get the assignment." So it was like the easiest job I've ever gotten. I was
Yeah.
very thankful for that.
Well,
Um,
now that all the COVID nonsense has been lifted, and things are kind of back to normal and stuff, have you had any better luck, getting reactions from the studios, or
Right. Well, right now I've been mostly focused on comics just because they've been treating me really well. I'm testing for interiors soon, and a lot of people that I know that are established in animation are having troubles getting a job right now. Just everything seems to be a mess. So I've sort of been focusing on the things I can control, which are the comics. And with your program, I was just thinking, well, if I'm doing the comics professionally, I can at least get some experience under my belt of animation. And then when things seem to calm down a little bit, which I hope will happen, you know, at some point, I'll have both comics and some stuff from your program to be able to show people.
Well, again, it's one of those things where y- there was a period where I was one of the people who would review portfolios for Nickelodeon.
Hmm. Oh,
And
that's cool.
yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed doing it, and I would it would surprise me how you would get someone with a really prestigious animation degree applying, and then you'd get someone who is just kind of an outsider who had maybe done comics or had been doing their own comics or something like that. And on the occasions where I sort of was like, I want to roll the dice and see what this person who hasn't worked in animation can do, a lot of times that's a person who will come in with a zeal and a hunger that you're just not going to get from someone who's already jaded. you know
Yeah, yeah.
I'll take that extra percentage worth of oomph over experience any day.
Well, I'm glad that you have that mentality. I definitely, I hope to be one of those people one day. That's the hope. So,
Well, the one thing we can guarantee you at Fountain's Pen Productions, and as I like to say, we could crash and burn at any moment, but at the very least, you get experience, and that's the thing that everyone always says. It's like, oh, you got to get some experience. You got to get some experience, and boy,
right,
it just seems like it was just a wasteland of no avenues with which to get experience. So
right. Unless you're able to just drop $50,000 a year, um, and go to, a huge college, which a lot of
right.
people are not able to do,
Well, and
for
what I've
various reasons.
what I found is lots of people have the abilities, they have the abilities, but they need something to do. Like
Yeah,
you may be a great character designer, but you can't even put together a good portfolio because you need someone to say, here is a list of characters that I want you to do. And there is a
exactly.
difference. There is a difference between doing character designs for characters that you created versus being handed an assignment
Yeah.
of
And
characters
being
that
able to take notes and work in a group which is actually mirroring what it would actually be going on, if
right,
you worked on a
right.
Yeah.
team.
Well, that's why I'm kind of hoping we're gonna upset the system a little bit with our.
I would love that.
Well, one of the things, because again, I was an outsider. I didn't have any experience in animation, and one of the things I noticed about animation when I got into it was just how steeped it is in tradition and legacy, and we do it this way because this is how it's always been done, and it's like, but that's not practical anymore. And
Yeah.
and I got nothing but reverence for everything that came before me. But my goodness, times have changed. But
Yeah. You have to let people have a chance. And I hope, you know, sort of with the panels that I do in teaching kids, how to sell their art, basically showing them exactly the portfolios, um, giving them examples of like cold emails to send
right,
to potential people to work with, stuff like that. I always try to pull people up with me rather than pulling the ladder up behind me. And I hope, if I'm ever in a situation with animation, I want to do it the same exact way because um, I want people to have a chance that don't necessarily have a chance otherwise.
right. Well, and that's exactly it. Like I said, it's like it's a lot of times it's the people who feel like they're never going to get that chance that are the most excited and the most enthusiastic.
Exactly.
Now we
Yeah.
got to
Exactly.
wrap up here, but before we did, I wanted to ask you. Had mentioned that you had pitched a show with a friend of yours. Is that another aspiration of yours to create shows and to?
I really love helping someone who has an idea for a world flesh that out. Um, so I'm not huge on the writing aspect of it necessarily, but I really love being sort of given a bone and going and running with it.
Yeah.
Because once I hear about a character, I'm a very mentally visual person. I can see it in my mind, and I want to help someone, get it on paper. So
Right.
Absolutely. Well, in an effort to wrap it up, I just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us for this last hour.
yeah, thank you.
I learned a lot about what it is to do like cover stuff, because that's I have a lot. There's a local group of guys who are all artists, and they have just
Hmm.
started within the last 2 years. They've crowdfunded their own animated, well, not animated, their own comic book universe with their
Hmm.
own heroes and their own, their own protagonists, antagonists, and stuff like that. So it's real cool to get to see like their process and stuff. And then it's cool to hear about like the professional, like the people that are creating stuff right now for professional IPs, like, so thank you. I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, I learned a
Yeah,
lot.
thank y'all for having me. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I think what we need to do sometime in the near future is have, you and then a handful of other people that I'm currently tormenting with my little program, and have everyone just sort of go over what their experiences were.
Like
Yeah,
a round table. I think that would be
Yeah,
really cool. Have a
yeah.
round table episode. Yeah.
I know, people are from all over the world, but there are a lot of people that are in SoCal. Maybe sometime we can actually have like a local meetup, you know, lunch or dinner or whatever, and actually get to see people in person, you
You
know.
you kids have fun with that, because I'm I am an old man now, and it's funny because our two heads of production had already, started talking about, yeah, we gotta get everyone together at a convention or something like that, and I'm like, you kids have fun. I am gonna be sitting on my couch watching Dateline, and you guys just party on down, because
I don't blame you.
I and look, I've been there, I've done that. It's a blast. Godspeed to all of you, but I am too old and too tired, and that's why, frankly, I've said it before. My goal is to, get this program on autopilot and then just step away even more.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I love the idea of people like you and like the other now 150 people we've got, plugging away at it, because you're so full of life and so full of energy, and those are two things that I am run out of.
Well, regardless, thank you for creating a program and thank you
Oh,
for having me on today.
it was
Yeah, not a problem.
come on again sometime, and
Yeah, sure. Just let me know.
I'll tell everyone zig a zig ah, and let Rusty wrap us up.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, that's been another episode of the Animation Conversation. I'm Rusty, and this has been F and Sophie. Thank you so much.
And that brings us to the end of another incredible episode of Animation Conversation. We hope you enjoyed this animated adventure as much as we did. Remember, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to us on our social media channels or through good old-fashioned email. We value your input and want to make Animation Conversation a podcast that resonates with animation lovers like you. Our Instagram and Twitter are @AnimationConvo. Our YouTube is @AnimationConversation. Our email is theanimationconvo@gmail.com. Before we say our final goodbyes, we want to remind you to stay animated. Keep exploring, appreciating, and sharing the magic of animation with others. Let your imagination soar and let the world of animated wonders continue to inspire and captivate you. Thank you once again for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, this is Wubcake, signing off for Animation Conversation. Keep watching, keep dreaming, and keep the animation conversation alive.